Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Power Motor Yacht Podcast. I'm your host, Editor-in-Chief Dan Harding. I have a little bit of an unwritten rule for this podcast to be very careful bringing on certain boat builders or marketers, because they're probably going to be trying to push their product, and I want us to live up to the mission of sharing the best stories in boating. But I'm going to break that rule with today's guest, Radenko Milakovich, who's the current owner of J-Craft Boats. Now, Radenko is almost in every way not your typical boat builder. In fact, he didn't even have an interest in boating until later in his life. So I really hope you enjoy this unorthodox tale of how he became the newest custodian of a brand that builds some of the most beautiful boats I've ever seen. Before we jump in, just a quick word from our sponsor. If you're interested in the latest bow and stern thruster technology, look no further than Sleipner's latest innovation, E-Series thrusters, now available from Imtra. Sleipner, formerly Side Power, developed E-Series with their first electric motor designed and manufactured specifically for marine thruster use. Combining that motor with their proven gear leg design and Q-prop skew propeller delivers performance and runtimes never seen before in a DC thruster. You can learn more at imtra.com. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Power Motor Yacht Podcast. I think I have an interesting one in store for you guys today. I'm here with Radenko Milakovich, the owner of J-Craft. Radenko, thank you for having us out here.
Cheers.
To good health.
To good health.
You know, we don't have too many boat builders on the podcast so far. You don't want everyone to get jealous, but you know, right off the bat, you struck me as somebody who had an interesting story and perhaps an unconventional journey to boat builder ownership.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess my first question is, I understand that you weren't born into boating. You found it later in life. Is that true?
Yes. I found boating in my mid-30s when I was lucky enough to be in the south of France, and I saw this boat, the old J-Craft Cabrio Cruiser, the 38-foot design, which no longer exists. We replaced it with a 42-foot design, and I fell in love.
With that boat, that was your start.
Yeah, absolutely.
So did you charter, or you must have gone out? You must have experienced.
So I saw her down from our balcony. We were in Port Hercules in Monaco.
Yeah.
And I saw her cruising around the harbor. And I went down to the harbor and jumped up and down to try to get the gentleman's attention who was driving her. Eventually, I got his attention, and he came over and we chatted. We chatted for a long time. He explained to me that this was a Swedish boat, that this was a boat that, looked retro, but was a reasonably modern boat. It was a fiberglass structure with mahogany wood veneer, and she at that time still had two straight shaft Yanmar propelled, straight shaft propulsion system with two Yanmars.
Right.
And she was as pretty as what we have today, because the 42 is built very much in her likeness. But a thoroughly more modern breed of boat, more for beginners like me, or more for at that time certainly beginners like me. So I saw him, and I didn't know anything about boating, so he explained all these things to me, and I asked him whether I could charter her.
Yeah.
And I chartered her for a week. That week became a month. That month became 3 months. So much so that we went and got a house in Port Grimaud, next to Saint-Tropez.
Wow. Yeah.
And put a boat in front. I hired a captain.
Okay.
Who taught me everything there is to know in 3 months, and my wife.
Wow.
But at the end of that 3-month period, I still felt I hadn't even scratched the surface of knowledge of boating.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's really how we got hooked, if that's the right term.
Absolutely. What happened next? Because we make a jump. You have these unbelievable months.
Yeah.
Take possession of the boat. And
so this was in 07.
Okay.
And at the end of that summer, I came back to this gentleman and to the brand, and I said, look, I'd like to buy one. But because despite the fact that I've trained on her for 3 months, there were certain elements that I was just not comfortable with. She had, as I said, straight shaft propulsion system with the two Yanmars, and I felt that she was hard to turn, even at speed, and certainly in harbor.
Right.
She was a full wood veneer boat, so even the sides were in wood veneer. So every time you went to refuel or to dock alongside the quay,
I know where you're going with this.
you would have moments where you'd have a heart attack. It's like, oh my God.
I know.
Because the tumble home even in the 38 was quite extreme.
Yeah.
So you got this massive overhang in front, and every time you approach the wall, you're sort of really nervous. And with a bit of wind, because she's quite tall in the front, you get quickly into situations that you don't want to be in.
That's right. You're not putting it up against like a big rub rail. It's coming right up against the most beautiful part of the boat.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. So I said to him, listen, can we do something about this? How do we do it better? And they sort of looked at me and said, look, what you see is what you get. And well, it's appeared quite harsh in the beginning. It sort of made sense over time because I learned that the then owner of and the founder, I should say, the spiritual guardian of this brand, if I can use that term, Mr. Janssen, i.e. Mr. J, Björn Janssen, was quite ill, unfortunately. And as a result, the activities at the yard were quite muted. And we got talking, and over time I sort of figured all these things out. And in the end we came to an arrangement where, having tried to buy a hull number 7 from them and do it myself, and having failed miserably because they told me I would, because the underwater hull design wasn't suited for a Volvo Penta IPS system.
Okay.
I made him an offer, and I said, look, we'll take this brand to the next level. And your boat, we'll design a new hull, underwater hull, that will be purposefully built for the Volvo Penta IPS system. And that's what we did.
Wow.
We sat down with Volvo Penta IPS, and with their engineers, we built that new hull.
Okay.
And in that same spirit, I said to him, look, we're going to keep rolling with your vision and your aesthetics and your ambition. And I'm just going to put some more resources behind it. If you would be so kind to sell it to me. And Mr. Janssen agreed, and we took it forward. And then during 2008 and most of 2009, we built the new Torpedo 42. And when you look at our website, the first video that shows up is the old 38 versus the new 42. The 38 is in sort of beige, and the 42 is in dark blue.
Okay.
So when you look at them closely, you'll see some slight differences, because the tumble home is a little bit more pronounced. The ailerons are bigger on the 42. She's generally a little bit larger because she's grown from 38 to 42.
Sure.
But beyond that, they're very similar.
Okay. So I since learned that the previous owner passed away. Did he have the chance to see some of those newer iterations and get out on them? Or?
Absolutely. Our master builder, Johan, our chief, Johan Hallin, he made sure of that, and cool. I obviously encouraged that to the maximum degree. And Björn had 2 times when he visited, when we first came out with it, and then the summer after that.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I wasn't there for the second occasion, but I'm told by Johan that he approved.
That's
which
great.
was very important.
That's important, because I know how much you put into carrying on the legacy, and you could have gone in different directions, but you really preserved what the brand was about. Well, that's interesting. Let's. I guess we'll back up to even before you took it over. What an interesting start for this brand. So I read that, and also it was in the story I previously ran in Power Motoryacht, but that hull number 1, built for the King of Sweden.
Yes. Björn was a larger-than-life character. Right?
Really?
And he was in the hotel and the nightclub business in Sweden, and he was the premier provider of these hotel and nightclub services. So he had contacts across Swedish society, and he could reach anybody because he was a very prominent man, and he was just a very vibrant, very big character, larger than life. One of those guys.
How do you start working with? First of all, I didn't know Sweden had a king, but how do you start working with the king?
Do you know what he? This is an interesting part of that story. he was always fascinated by boats. Yeah, being a Swede, I guess it's in your DNA.
Right. That makes sense.
Old
Very
Viking and all that.
heritage. Sure.
So he had this vision of these beautiful wooden runabouts from the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
The Chris Crafts, the Hackers, the Rivas,
Riva,
etc. But he wanted to have a properly seaworthy version of that, if you like.
For those waters.
For the Baltic Sea.
Sure.
It's a very capricious sea. It's a very difficult sea at times. And he just wanted something that was out there. So he spent a ton of time with the builders of Nimbus, the producers of these lovely sailboats. And they sort of educated him about the build process. And over a period, he managed to convince Johan Hallin to come and join him. And Johan sort of explained, he was in the development department of Nimbus at the time, and so he explained to him what it would take to do this. And so he said to him, look, you've got to build a minimum of 5 to justify fiberglass, right?
Okay.
The mold and the tooling, etc. And so once Johan sort of explained that to him, Bjorn walked away, and a week later had 5 orders. The first one of which was the King of Sweden. And that was just a guy. I mean, I can't.
Just a guy.
He was the guy. He was.
Yeah.
He was a very cool guy. And that's what he achieved. And the king came.
I know I keep latching on to this king thing. Is he like the active king? Is he a former king?
He's still the king of Sweden.
He's still the king.
Yes.
Does he still have the boat? No.
He still has it.
Oh, he does.
The boat, I should say, is down in Saint Maxime.
Okay.
And we still take care of her some 24 years now later.
Wow.
And counting. And I've had the pleasure of meeting His Royal Highness and the Queen. And we were blessed with the opportunity for him to actually present hull number, I think it was hull number 18 to the then new owner, who is also a Swedish subject of him and her, and that was quite something. So he pulls up with Polaris next to hull number 18, the new torpedo.
Wow.
He walks over.
How old is the king? I hear king, I think like 120, but is he?
You know what? I won't be able to tell you precisely how old he is, but he's in his late 70s.
Okay, so you have a lot of years of using the
this
boat,
was in 2019.
Right.
So he walked up to me, he picked up the key, and he handed it over to the new owner, who was hyperventilating at that moment, and said, "Welcome to
welcome to the family." I mean, people they fight so hard to get influences these
amazing.
days, and the whole one went to the king.
No,
That's crazy.
This was truly amazing. And
What a
then
start.
he spent the next 2 hours with Johan and with Zoltan, our 2 senior guys, going through the differences between hull number 1 of the Cabri cruiser versus hull number 18 of the torpedo. And we have all of this obviously photo documented, which the royal family was kind enough to allow us to use in our marketing. So it was a pretty awesome experience. Now, my own background is I was born in Germany. I grew up there. So the Queen is also German by background. So beyond just the sheer fact of having the King of Sweden, His Royal Highness Carl Gustaf, present the boat to the new Swedish owner, it was just an amazing experience for me to speak in German.
That's cool. Yeah.
It was amazing.
Wow, what an experience. So
I was glad of it.
I guess maybe tell us a little bit about the factory and the employees, because you look at your boats and you hear and you know how beautiful they are, and you're a boat builder, you're thinking a huge army of employees. Not the case with you guys.
No, look, we're a small firm, and we hand built each boat. Each boat takes us roughly a year to build, just shy of a year. Each boat takes between 8,000 and 9,000 man or woman hours, person hours. And that sort of, if you think about it, translates into about 50 odd months, maybe a bit more, depending on the spec that you have on each boat, because each person works around 168 hours a month.
Okay.
We built them in one location. We built them in our site in Gotland, in Visby, in the capital. And we built them from the keel up. So the hull is ours. We don't outsource pretty much anything. We take great pride in building pretty much everything ourselves. Obviously, the propulsion is Volvo Penta IPS, still Swedish, but from the other coast of Sweden.
Right.
We don't do that. We also don't rear our own cows to get the leathers and stuff. We buy that in.
Right.
It's primarily French or Italian. But beyond and beyond our Nardi steering wheel, pretty much else is Swedish. And in many ways we say, look, well over 90, maybe even 95% of this boat is Swedish value added. And in that sense, we don't just say made in Sweden, we say made of Sweden. To the extent that we build our own, we make our own steel.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, right.
Only the flat steel is German from ThyssenKrupp. The rest is.
You had to get some German in there, didn't you?
We did. I mean, after all, it's sort
partner.
of.
All right.
As I said to you earlier, I look at this boat and I think this sort of Mediterranean beauty, but in terms of styling and design and heritage. But you very much got Swedish tradition and build quality and attention to detail, with some German practicality thrown into the mix.
Of course.
And that's how I like to think of it.
And now just a quick word from our sponsor. IMTRA is a 100% employee-owned company committed to bringing you the best-in-class products, expert product knowledge, and unparalleled support to the entire marine industry throughout North America since 1952. Okay. What is, first of all, for the record, you say small.
Yeah.
How small? And the number of employees.
Oh,
you're
sorry.
You're running a lean crew.
Look, we have 11 people. We have 10 men and 1 woman.
Okay.
We produce, or our aim is to produce between 3 and a maximum of 4 torpedoes a year. We only build one model, the 42-foot torpedo.
Right.
We, within that, do heavy customization. So each boat is built for a specific order and for a specific, therefore, owner.
Yeah.
And typically our experience is that owners get very involved. In terms of their choices and their preferences and their day-to-day use. What do they want to get out of it?
Makes sense.
We also have a number of boats that are tenders to the very largest of super yachts around the world, which helps us tremendously because we get the same surveyors that survey these very large super yachts at the Fed ships or the Lursens or the other mega yacht builders.
Right. That
come to us and survey our own build. So the standards are set accordingly. Sure. And that was a massive learning curve when we started, right? But I very much feel we're very, very, very much up there in terms of the quality that we build.
Yeah.
And that's sort of shown in the various snag lists that we get at the end of the survey. The lowest one we had was 3 snags. The highest one we had was 7 snags in the last 5 deliveries.
And if good marine surveyors, that's nothing. So
look, one of the snags was we hadn't printed the name on the owner's manual of the boat. That was one.
Of course.
Right? The other one
egregious.
Was the waterline, according to the surveyor, because the new owner was an architect, had to be lifted by 22 millimeters. At the very
millimeters.
End. Yeah, 22 millimeters.
Yep.
I remember
that. Sounds like a surveyor. I know.
Right, and it's that kind of thing. So we take great pride in the quality of our build and the attention that we have to detail. Whoa!
Pretty amazing.
It's the Hercules.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
Well, excellent. What is the? I'm going to ask you the best part in a second, but what is the biggest challenge of owning a brand like this?
I think, look, the biggest challenge, I myself am from a fund management background. I used to be fortunate enough to work in it.
Are you still involved in the finance
No,
industry?
I sort of retired last year.
Okay, congratulations.
And thank you. And this was always a thing that I wanted to do into my retirement. I said in 1 or 2 interviews, I want to do this brand justice. I want to do the vision of Janssen's justice because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, in my opinion, it's beautiful.
Hard to argue.
So when you come from that background, You know the old adage, how do you make millions in the yachting industry?
Start with billions.
That's right.
Exactly, yep.
So for me, this isn't about the economics of
Okay.
it. This is about the love for it.
I can see that.
And I want to make this brand independent of any one owner, including myself, right? Not because I want to get rid of it, far from it. You know, this is something I'll never get rid of. But so that these Swedes who have been working on this with, you know, in part 1,000-year-old techniques. If you look at our website, you'll find some of the short
that's
videos.
amazing. Yeah.
Right, which show you know, the wood bending. That's a 1,000-year-old plus technique from the old Vikings. That's how they bent their wood, right? Which is amazing. And we still use that today. If you look at our transom, that's one piece that gets bent into that shape after you heat up that wood under, I don't know how many degrees Celsius to make it bendable. And you put it into shape.
Just a sidebar question on that.
Go on.
Gotland, where it's built, is that has, I understand, a boat building heritage.
It's massive.
Does that date back to the Vikings?
Oh, absolutely.
Like that island.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was sort of you know, that side of the Vikings that attacked and explored and traded with the whole of Eastern Europe.
Right.
You know, if you think about a modern day thing like Ukraine, that was created by the Vikings. Kiev was created by the Vikings, right? They had their nickname, which was the Rus, these Vikings.
Yeah.
They traded through the Russian rivers all the way down to the Black Sea, and from the Black Sea all the way down to the Eastern Mediterranean, and from there all the way down to Mesopotamia. When you go into Gotland, if you ever go, you go to the museum, you find all these Middle Eastern and Ottoman gold and silver coins, and they amassed massive fortunes.
Wow.
And then subsequent to the Vikings, it was obviously a center of the Hanseatic community.
Okay.
The Hanseatic League, as it was called, which was the first, sort of the front runner for the European Union, but also for NATO, if you like.
Yeah.
Because it was an economic union, but also a defense union. They had their own navy, their own armies. And it was rather than nation-based, because nations didn't really exist at that time, it was city-based.
Okay.
So you had, you know, Hamburg, Lübeck, Rostock, St. Petersburg, Tallinn, Gdansk, etc., who were members of that union. And Gotland was very much at the center of it, because literally was geographically at the center of it, but also all these nationalities converged in that one city. And you know, it's still the most gorgeous, beautiful place, because it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's got the longest intact medieval city wall.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
It's an amazing place. You know, and the traditions that, this is the thing, you know, the people, the islanders, right? They build boats for the utility of it. You know, utility and toughness and capability is at the forefront of their thinking.
Right, because it's so harsh there.
Yes. The beauty of it is sort of almost secondary, but it comes with it. You know.
That's amazing. It's my old high school mascot was the Viking, so I've always had kind of a fascination with that. But to think that those longboats were built in the same place that you guys are building now is just wild.
You know, and look, we're now the last remaining shipbuilder on the island.
I saw that.
Right, and this island used to be a massive center. Nimbus had a massive facility there in the past. Obviously, the boating industry goes through, you know, it's like in emerging markets. When you look back at trading, it's a boom and bust. And that's also why I believe that, you know, staying small is kind of beautiful, because we can look through those cycles.
Yeah.
Because we're not trying to, you know, we're not trying to do anything other than build a small quantity of exceptional boats.
Wow. So we'll fast forward to now, you know, your boats are just making a splash here in the U.S. There's one in the Great Lakes. This is the second one, another one hot on its heels, hopefully bound for Palm Beach. But you've been doing a real interesting thing. What brings us here today to Shelter Island, you've been introducing the brand to the media in a very interesting way. Do you mind kind of like touching on the thinking there?
Well, listen, absolutely.
No one else puts us up in Shelter Island, you know, so what was your thought?
When I retired last year, I sort of thought, what's boating all about? Unless you were, you know, in the Navy or you're a fisherman, you don't really need a boat.
As they say.
Yeah. You want a boat. and a boat's there to give you some form of pleasure in some way, shape or form that you lack or miss or want to achieve, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, for me at least, a boat is always a key element to anyone's lifestyle if you're on the water. And it enables you to do so many things. I mean, with boats you can reach most points of the earth, right?
Yeah.
For me personally, it's a place of peace. It's a place of disconnect. It's being one with the environment that you're in, and it's a place where, because of ultimately, to me at least, the scary nature of the sea, you know, and it changes, and nowhere more so than here. You know, sunshine one moment, thick fog the next.
Yeah.
It's a place that is equally beautiful but also challenging.
Yeah.
And it requires you to be on your toes, and requires you to have the very best of things at your disposal to manage to cope with it. But for me, to try and explain what this boat means to me by downloading on you for 20 minutes or an hour or 3 hours in the form of some presentation is kind of meaningless. Because I can't bring the spirit of what we're trying to do across to anyone in that short time period. And therefore, I just want to bring people alongside me and have them experience it together with me, live it with me, and see what it's like, see what I like, see what I don't like, see what I experience, see what I enjoy, and how the boat fits into all of these, aspects of our experience.
Okay.
And that's what this is all about. Rather than me downloading on you, come and enjoy it. Be here and be with us, and do all the things we do, and see if you like it. If you like it, hopefully you'll write something nice about it.
No
if
promises.
you don't like it, you'll write something.
No promises. We'll have to stay tuned for that. But let me ask you. I got two final questions.
Sure.
But we're gonna take a sidebar. You seem like somebody, when you get passionate about something, you go all in. I can't help but notice the beers that we have stacking up here on the table.
That we're going to drink a lot more of.
Off the record, but you are also part owner of.
Yeah. This is a brewery in Bosnia, of all places, in former Yugoslavia. There's one of the 6 republics that formed part of former Yugoslavia is Bosnia and Herzegovina. That happens to be where my family's from.
Okay.
I was born in Germany because my family emigrated post the country becoming communist country after 1945. And I grew up abroad, but I spent enough time during the summers to sort of experience my grandpa and my uncles and my father drinking this beer. This brewery was created by the Trappist monks in 1873, so it's 150 years old now. And through my work in the hedge fund industry and the private equity industry, I had the chance to acquire this brewery a number of years ago, which I did with a few friends of mine. And we've owned it ever since, and we're the largest independent brewery in former Yugoslavia, and I mentioned to you earlier, probably in a 1,000 kilometers radius from Bosnia, because everything else is basically owned by multinationals. Be it the Carlsberg, the Heinekens, the Molson Coors, you name it, they're all there. The Interbrews now, the Asahi's. So we take great pride in it. It's heavily crafted beer, as you would expect. You know, we don't call it necked craft. We call it nectar because that was the original name. You know, the drink of gods in Greek.
Ah, I didn't know
that. You know, I enjoy it very much. So I decided when we come here to the Hamptons, home away from home. That's our sort of motto.
Okay.
Last year we did in Saint-Tropez. We have to have another piece of home with us, and that's our beer.
Well, you're certainly a man of strong passions. My last question, I like to ask everybody this, but what has boating brought to your life? How has boating changed your life?
Well, look, when we lived down in the south of France, we also had a Palmer Johnson 120, an American product.
Nice,
And to me, still one of the most beautiful builder of yachts, large yachts, in the world. Despite the fact that they've had their ups and downs, I still think when I think of their 120s, 135s, the 170 and the 210, I mean, when I compare them to what's out there, they're still gorgeous.
Cool.
I mean, to me.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their own taste. They're obviously low volume, but they're beautiful. What has boating brought to me? Boating has brought to me, a whole new sort of experience in life. Something, I was born in the mountains.
Okay.
So for me, going to the sea was something new, something quite scary, but also something quite wonderful. It was a completely new experience for me, and something that I've very much embraced. It gives me peace. Looking at the sea, I don't feel in any other place, I don't feel as peaceful as being by the sea, or even more so when I'm on the sea, and especially when I'm in one of the little boats, especially by myself. You know, this electronic leash stops working.
Yeah,
and
nice.
It's an amazing period that you get, and it's provides a great backdrop for reflection, and for getting down to what's important. Focus, you know, on what's important in your life. And I always feel tremendously refreshed when I come back from there, whether it's on a larger boat or on a smaller boat. It's always the same.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you again so much for having us.
Thank you for coming.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you for enjoying all of this with me.
Excellent.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
And now just a closing word from our sponsor. Whether you're considering installing thrusters on your boat and have pre-sale questions, already have them, and need post-sale troubleshooting and service, IMTRA offers unparalleled support with a full-time team of product experts that are there to help. With hundreds of different thruster sizes and styles from Sleipner to offer, IMTRA is the best source for your bow and stern thruster needs. Visit imtra.com or give them a call to get all your thruster questions answered.